Beyond blame, the radical power of accountability in healing generational trauma. What if everything you've been told about healing from trauma is missing the most crucial piece? What if the key to breaking generational cycles isn't just understanding what happened to you, but owning what happens through you? I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Shanae Speller, whose groundbreaking work in trauma healing has revolutionized how we approach generational wounds, particularly within Black communities. Speller isn't just another voice in the mental health conversation. She's a visionary whose research and practice have fundamentally altered the landscape of trauma therapy. Her courage to challenge conventional wisdom has created pathways to healing for thousands who found traditional approaches insufficient or culturally disconnected. The truth that Shanae Speller so powerfully articulates is this: healing isn't just about what others have done to us, it's about what we choose to do with our pain. This revelation isn't comfortable, it isn't neat, but it might be exactly what we need to hear. For generations, especially within Black communities, we've understood trauma through the lens of external circumstances, systemic racism, historical injustices, family dysfunction, all real, all valid, all deeply impactful. But Speller's work reveals a missing dimension that changes everything: accountability. Not the blame filled, shame inducing kind of accountability that points fingers, but the liberating kind that recognizes our power to respond differently, even when our reactions were shaped by wounds we didn't create. As Speller explains, true healing requires deep accountability, recognizing our own role in the decisions we make as adults, even when shaped by past experiences or generational wounds. This is radical, this is disruptive, and this is exactly what many of us in healing journeys need to hear. Because here's what happens when we stay solely focused on external factors: we remain stuck. We remain victims. We remain powerless to change the patterns that keep showing up in our relationships, our careers, our health. The evidence is clear. When we combine understanding of systemic factors with personal accountability, healing accelerates, recovery deepens, transformation lasts. Let me share three profound truths from Speller's work that could transform your healing journey. First, accountability is essential for healing. Taking responsibility for your actions, even those influenced by trauma, empowers you to break cycles rather than repeat them. Owning your story creates space for both grace and growth. Think about that relationship pattern you keep finding yourself in, that financial decision you keep making despite knowing better, that health habit you can't seem to break. Yes, there are reasons these patterns exist. Yes, they may connect to deeper wounds, but the moment you say, "This is mine to change," something shifts. The cycle loses its grip. Second, self understanding leads to quicker recovery. When you look inward instead of outward, you gain clarity on patterns that keep you stuck. This self awareness helps manage emotional responses and fosters resilience in ways that merely blaming external circumstances cannot. And third, community support enhances personal growth. Healing isn't a solo journey. Culturally competent therapy and community care play crucial roles in overcoming trauma. Surrounding yourself with supportive networks accelerates progress toward mental wellness. Let me bring this to life with some powerful examples from Speller's research. In the United Kingdom, a remarkable group of Black women therapists founded a collective focused on culturally relevant approaches to mental health care. They recognized that mainstream therapy often failed their unique needs. These practitioners faced systemic racism within healthcare systems, lack of representation among therapists, and deep mistrust from clients who felt profoundly misunderstood. Their solution? They developed what they called an empathic approach rooted in accountability, helping clients recognize their agency while honoring lived experience, and created safe spaces for group work centered on self care amid injustice. The results were transformative. Clients reported greater trust in therapy processes and increased willingness to confront personal choices alongside societal factors, leading to more sustained healing outcomes. Inspired by the 2022 Community Trauma UK conference on Black women trauma and mental health, these practitioners sought new models that blend cultural awareness with personal responsibility. Their work has revolutionized therapeutic practice across parts of the UK mental health sector through conferences and published essays driving industry wide conversations. This collective's model now influences training programs nationwide, demonstrating how combining accountability with empathy can transform both individual lives and professional standards. But this approach isn't limited to clinical settings. Consider what happened at a major university following a series of racial hate crimes targeting students of color. The counseling department implemented trauma informed care strategies that went beyond the standard approach. Students were experiencing symptoms ranging from grief to rage after repeated exposure to discrimination. Many felt isolated or invalidated when seeking help through traditional channels. The counselors made a crucial shift. Rather than focusing solely on the external events, they helped students process their own responses, encouraging them to take ownership over coping mechanisms while acknowledging the systemic injustices they face daily. Students learn grounding techniques tailored specifically for BIPOC communities. Participation rates rose dramatically as students saw themselves reflected in staff approaches that balanced validation with empowerment. After FBI data revealed rising hate crimes against African Americans on college campuses nationwide, universities recognized the need for more nuanced interventions, blending personal agency with communal healing efforts. This program became a national model, cited at higher education conferences as best practice for supporting marginalized student populations post trauma. By empowering students through both acknowledgement of harm done and encouragement towards accountable action steps, campus culture shifted toward resilience rather than victimhood alone. Perhaps most compelling are the grassroots initiatives emerging in predominantly Black neighborhoods. Community organizations launched free workshops on coping strategies rooted in trauma informed principles following waves of violence or unrest. Residents grappled not just with immediate loss, but also layers of generational pain compounded by economic hardship. Stigma around seeking help remained high due partly to mistrust stemming from historical neglect by mainstream providers. These workshops combined education about inherited trauma with actionable steps participants could take, such as journaling reflections about their role in family dynamics, and facilitated discussions emphasizing mutual support plus accountability over one's part moving forward. The outcomes were remarkable. Attendees reported feeling less powerless over circumstances. Many began regular peer led circles where members held each other accountable while sharing resources like referrals or affirmations. Organizers were inspired by research showing that addressing both structural barriers and internalized beliefs accelerates recovery at scale across affected communities. These initiatives reduced stigma around mental health services locally while influencing citywide policy changes regarding funding priorities for culturally competent care programs. Such efforts demonstrate ripple effects from improved individual well being up through stronger advocacy movements demanding equity across public systems. As Shanae Speller's work demonstrates, this balanced approach to healing is revolutionary, especially for Black women who have carried too much for too long. If more individuals, and especially leaders in our communities, embraced radical accountability alongside grace, we would see faster emotional recovery after adversity, greater capacity among professionals, business owners, and families alike to disrupt harmful cycles before they become entrenched habits. A shift away from blame cultures towards solution oriented mindsets, fueling innovation not just personally but organizationally too. We would witness stronger advocacy movements powered by people who know themselves deeply, are willing to admit missteps openly, and model vulnerability without shame. This would fundamentally change workplaces, families, and entire industries, making room not only for survival, but true thriving. I know what some of you are thinking, but what about systems of oppression? What about historical trauma? What about injustice? These realities don't disappear in Speller's framework. They remain critically important context. But here's the revolutionary insight: acknowledging these external factors while also embracing personal agency creates the most powerful path to healing. It's both and, not either or. You can recognize the impact of generational trauma while also taking ownership of your response to it. You can acknowledge systemic racism while also examining your own patterns. You can honor your ancestors' struggles while choosing different paths forward. This is the essence of what Shanae Speller teaches: that true liberation comes when we hold both external awareness and internal accountability in perfect tension. For those of us in the Black community, especially Black women who have been socialized to carry everyone else's burdens, this message is particularly potent. The strong Black woman trope has left many exhausted, depleted, and disconnected from their authentic selves. Speller's approach offers a different way, one that honors our strength while creating space for our softness, one that acknowledges our wounds while activating our power, one that sees both our context and our choices as meaningful. I stand before you today not just to share information, but to issue a challenge to move beyond the comfortable narratives we tell ourselves about why we are the way we are, a challenge to look unflinchingly at both the wounds we've received and the responsibility we hold for our healing. What would change in your life if you embrace this radical accountability? What relationships might transform? What dreams might finally take flight? What peace might you finally claim? The journey begins with a single question: where in my life am I waiting for someone else to change before I can heal? Where am I giving away my power by focusing exclusively on external circumstances? I invite you, no, I implore you to take one courageous step this week. Identify one pattern, one reaction, one habit that you've attributed entirely to your past or to others. Ask yourself, what is my role here? What different choice could I make? Even in the face of this wound, write it down. Speak it aloud. Share with someone you trust. This isn't about denying your pain or dismissing injustice. It's about reclaiming the extraordinary power that lives within you, the power to respond rather than merely react, to create rather than merely survive. As Shanae Speller's work so powerfully demonstrates, when we combine accountability with compassion, we don't just heal ourselves. We create ripples that can heal generations to come. The choice is yours. The time is now. The world is waiting for the healing that only your courage can bring.